presentation is about, is to tell you about our Apple ONE2ONE project and the fact that we've embraced Apple as both a company and as a technology that can enhance the curriculum within the classroom. And we're here to tell you why. Have a look at this slide by John Dewey. If we teach, sorry about that. If we teach today as we taught yesterday, we rob our children of tomorrow. So trying to teach today's youth using the tools of yesterday is an uphill battle. And what we need to do is we need to be able to captivate, inspire, and engage our children in the classroom. And I'm sure you've all bought into this, and that's the reason why you've come to Parklands College, is that you've seen the technology that we have within the school. We have interactive whiteboards, we have the data projectors, the sound system, the Macs in the labs. You've seen the technology that we have. And what we need to do now is we have to enable or arm our learners with a personalized learning device. So we started this project and we have a vision. There are a lot of words, bad slide, very bad slide. So I'm going to just give you the pointers on that slide. What we want to do is we want to prepare our learners for the futures. And how we're going to do that is we're going to develop 21st century critical thinking skills. And Mr. Sherman is going to be telling you a little bit more about that straight after this slide. We want to integrate technology into the classroom as a teaching tool. And it's going to be timetabled and it's going to be part of the curriculum. It's not going to replace what's happening in the classroom. It's going to enhance it. It's going to be driven by innovative, trained teachers. Teachers who've been on training for a very long period at the college. You'll find out a little bit about that just now. And we want to be able to match laptop programs that we've seen all over the world. We've been to Singapore, we've been to Australia, we've been to New Zealand. We've seen grade 1 laptops. And we really, really are inspired. We need to match on a global level what's happening out there in education. So what I'd like to do is I'd like to introduce Mr. Sherman, who's going to be, he's our ICT integrated consultant, and he's going to tell you a little bit on the benefits of ONE2ONE. Thank you.
You have somebody coming up with a much more charming accent than mine. So, Richard has mentioned that you've been looking east to Singapore, New Zealand, and Australia, and I'm going to give you the Western perspective. I'll let you read that while I talk. Laptop students are people who are going to be working actively to create knowledge. We don't learn passively. There's the concept or the ideal of learning, and sometimes in South Africa, is we've got these empty vessels and we pour this knowledge in. We call that knowledge learning outcomes. And at grade 12, we give them an exam. Hopefully they do well, they go on varsity, and that's it. And I think what Parklands is after is a far broader vision of education that involves creating lifelong learners. And lifelong learners are people who know how to construct meaning, know how to construct knowledge, and are not only knowledge creators, but they have the metacognitive skills, which means they're able to think about their thinking. And one-to-one programs help learners become those kind of reflective thinkers. Laptops cause a great deal of change, and teachers at Parklands are going to be talking about those changes. And if you were already outside talking to some of those educators, you've seen some of those changes taking place already. There's a lot less lecturing and a lot more individual and group work. Students are going to do more work on their own. They're going to work at their own pace. And teachers are going to act in a different way. Teachers are going to be working more as consultants and less in that role of sage on the stage, which is unfortunately the role I'm taking now. Joe, who's outside playing probably, is going to show you, he's going to get to show you what the teacher's role is like in the new world that we're heading towards, and I'm modeling the old world. But the other thing that happens with one-to-one instruction is teachers are able to make what I call course corrections. They have a destination that they're going with their class, They see that they're not quite going in that getting towards that destination. They're able to do more ongoing formative assessment, and they're able to make those changes that are necessary to reach their destination. A teacher who doesn't have that kind of feedback that's ongoing can't make those corrections. They don't know until assessment time where their learners have ended up. And a one-to-one laptop setting allows them to see, to get more data about what's going on in the classroom and what their learners understand and what their learners can do. There are two studies I'm going to mention. This one's from the Denver School for Science and Technology, which had a one-to-one laptop, which has had a one-to-one laptop program for several years. And the research involved surveying teachers in this particular example. Nearly 2/3 of teachers reported that they relied less on textbooks because of the laptops, which I'm obviously coming from a certain bias. We think that's a good thing. They also reported that 85% of them agreed or strongly agreed that they're better able to meet the needs of students with varying needs. In other words, they're able to individualize learning for every student in their classroom. And you're going to hear a lot of that coming up in the next 45 minutes, that idea of individualized instruction. 60% of those teachers agreed or strongly agreed that with the laptops they were able to spend more time with learners individually, one-on-one, than they are without those laptops. And one-to-one initiatives provide learning that is more engaging and it's relevant. We're preparing learners not for exam time. We're not preparing learners for matric. That may be your ultimate goal as a parent. But if you want to think about what you're trying to create in terms of learners, you want to hopefully create children that are going to be successful throughout their whole lives. So what you want to begin to think about is how do we create a lifelong learner? And how do we do that in a way that's relevant to the children that are in the classroom today? Not relevant to your classroom. Your classroom is gone. And I like Richard's quote at the very beginning because it gets us to think about where do we want to be headed. I made the shocking statement last week at a meeting there when people were discussing Microsoft and Apple and this and that. And I said, well, how do we know there's going to be a Microsoft in 10 years? There probably won't be. That's my personal feeling, is the company, as it now looks, won't exist. So any kinds of debates over, what are we looking for in terms of education? We don't know what it's going to look like. So what do we need to do? We need to give children the skills to be able to handle what's coming without knowing what that is. This is from a United States Department of Education 30-year longitudinal study, which basically said that young people will earn a bachelor's, that the best predictor of whether young people will earn a bachelor's degree, a 4-year degree, is not their test scores, it's their participation in a rigorous academic program. And to increase the rigor, to increase the depth and authenticity of the curriculum is one of the goals of a one-to-one initiative. That is a positive contributing factor to a learner's future economic success. If we're trying to create these beings that will be successful in life, one of the ways to do that is to give them a deep, rich educational program now. Laptops are not just an extra. They're essential for what we call 21st century skills. There's an organization called 21stcentury.org. It's made up of a consortium of companies, including Hewlett-Packard, Microsoft, Apple, Dell, and a number of non-technology companies, as well as government leaders in the United States. And Richard will put that website up for you, or provide it to you in some materials at some point. And they've gone through a couple of iterations of these 21st century skills. But the idea is that a 21st century learner, to be prepared to be productive in the 21st century, you need to have certain skills that go beyond the content, that go beyond the learning objectives. You need to have problem-solving skills. You need to be able to synthesize information from a variety of content areas. And if you saw some of the examples outside, I'm sure you noticed that there's a lot of that synthesis going on. When Joe does his demonstration, you'll see how that synthesis comes up in some of the examples, and Jane's examples as well. You'll see that synthesis. Do any of you not talk at work? Raise your hand if you don't speak or write at work. Nobody. Okay, so having interpersonal communication skills, particularly I would argue in the South African context, is essential. Those are 21st century skills. Search strategies for dealing with all that mass, those billions and billions and billions of pages that are now on the internet, is another 21st century skill. Being able to evaluate that information for credibility, for reliability, and to apply it in a valid way, to deal with the overload that comes with all that information. How do I filter? How do I keep out what I don't need? That's a skill. That's a skill that has to be taught. It can't be taught in a once-off lesson. It has to be infused into the curriculum, and that's one of the things that a one-to-one initiative does. Dealing with how to create and write for an online rather than a print audience. Your kids are not part of the literate generation. They're part of the video generation. Their way of communicating is going to look very different than our way. I'm a former language arts teacher, so it breaks my heart, I have to admit that, because I want them to know their Shakespeare, and I want them to know their whoever, and I want them to be articulate. But they're going to have to not only be able to do that, they're going to have to be able to do it in other media. Some medium that we probably can't imagine. Having the computerized presentation skills. There's a lot of talk about what kinds of things you can do with a Mac versus what you can do with a, what are those things called? PCs. And I've used a Macintosh to teach with since 1985. I don't work for Apple. Apple's never given me a penny, and they may never do that. But I've been using a Mac to teach for almost 25 years. And it made my life easier. It made my learner's life easier. But I'm sitting here right now working on something that uses Adobe software and Microsoft software. And the presentations that I do in PowerPoint. I mentioned the ability to be reflective. Having a one-to-one environment allows you to be more reflective and allows learners to be more reflective, because there's much more communication that's going on between the teacher and the learner, and also between the learner, the teacher, and the parent. You're going to get pulled into the school in new ways that the school can't even imagine yet. You're going to be more connected to what's going on in your child's classroom than you ever have been or ever imagined that you could be. And that's exciting. It's scary too, but it's exciting. Skip cross-cultural communication. There's this notion of authentic learning, which I like to use a lot. Basically, it involves the idea that what we do in the classroom should reflect what we do in the real world. That learners shouldn't be doing things in class that have no connection to what they're going to do in the real world and to what people do now on the job in the real world. One-to-one environments make it much easier for teachers to replicate those real-world environments, because many of you, as you know, find the computer to be ubiquitous in your work life. And yet, we don't see the same thing happening in classrooms. We need to have classrooms that are aligned with the real world, and that means having technology in those classrooms. Learning environments become much more authentic when you have a one-to-one environment, because the computer becomes just another tool, not an add-on. It's something that you flow into and out of very easily. And when Joe demonstrates the software, you'll be able to see how that happens. Learning also takes place in social settings, and having the ability for learners to communicate with each other using powerful software is one of the things that's going to enhance their learning. It's also going to engage them more. They're going to be excited. They're going to be more excited about what they're doing. They're going to have a real audience. And often that real audience is their peers, but you're also going to become part of that real audience. And then the other study that I like to reference is from the state of Maine, which is done by the University of Southern Maine. Maine has had an Apple one-to-one initiative going on now for 3 or 4 years. And this is the largest initiative of any of the states in the United States to do one-to-one programs. The impact of Maine's program on middle school teachers and students has been measured. And these are one of those 4 out of 5 teachers. It sounds like an ad. But 4 out of 5 teachers surveyed reported that learners were more engaged with their learning. They were more actively involved in their learning, and they produce higher quality work. 70% of those teachers reported that having laptops helped them to more effectively meet their curriculum goals, and they could individualize their curriculum to meet learners' needs, and that's something I mentioned earlier on. 3 out of 4 of those teachers indicated that the laptops help them to better meet the learning objectives. They don't replace the traditional tools. They help to use those traditional tools and expand the options that are available for teaching and learning. And the laptops provided learners and teachers with the opportunity to seamlessly integrate the technology. That's a key phrase, seamless integration. I think you're going to see examples of that seamless integration when the software is demonstrated in a little while. And I want you to kind of think about, how do we do this in a way that the teacher has an easier time doing their job? We don't want to make the job harder for the teacher. We want to make the job easier for the teacher so that they can be focused on your children. And one of the things that I find is true of Apple's is they make jobs easier. They are just easier to use. One-to-one programs help, the laptops help to provide an opportunity for students to engage in authentic learning, and you're going to see some of that authentic learning in examples in a couple of minutes from Jane. I did a workshop here on project-based learning. There are a lot of different ways of doing authentic learning, and your staff here is going to begin to explore and come up with new ways to make that learning more authentic. They're on part of a journey as well. They're not going to be in the same place 2 or 3 years from now that they are today. And your children are going to help them on that journey, and in the same way that they're going to help your children take that journey. And finally, the laptops provide a platform that enhances teaching and learning, and communication, and assessment. All of these things have to be part of a good educational environment. You have to have effective communication. You have to have ongoing assessment, not just summative assessment at the end of the school year. And you have to have teaching and learning that integrates the technology to further the goals of the curriculum. And that is it for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin. So why Apple? Why are we embracing this technology? If you look at this comparison slide, you'll see on the right, PC, it runs Windows, Microsoft Office. On the left, you'll see the MacBook, also runs Windows, Microsoft Office. But key is it runs Mac OS X and the iLife suite. So what we're looking at here is we're looking at a device that offers a full spectrum of educational tools. In particular, the iLife suite, which Joe will show you a little bit just now, their set of creative programs is really, really quite amazing. There's alignments to international trends to open source, and you can see that with Mac OS X as well, and that's what's happening internationally. It's not all just Microsoft Office, it's also open source. And that allows us to basically expose our learners to the changing dynamics of the technological world. It allows us to expose them to other things. And this sexy thing, besides being sexy, is durable. And it's been designed for the learner to drop this device. What will happen is a gravitational detection mechanism in the drive will pick it up and it'll lock the drive. There's also this amazing feature where if you just unplug the power, it's magnetic, you click the cable just comes out. So you don't pull the whole laptop off the table. It is quite something to work on, and I've been working on one for 6 months. I'm converted. But besides its flexibility, why Apple in education? Apple has a foundation in education, and they have been there to support us from the very beginning. Project 3 Reseller has been here training our educators for the past 2 years. We put 10 iMacs into our labs. And what happened was we started hosting ATIs, which are Apple Teacher Institute programs, to teachers both in our college and outside of our college, and free training it's an induction program which introduces the Apple iLife suite to teachers and how to actually integrate it into the curriculum. We've had 3 of those in the past 24 months. What happened was Duncan Kemp, who's head of education for Apple, the mayor, came in. He was so impressed with what we were doing that he donated another 11 iMacs to our lab and actually gave us the status of Apple Regional Training Center. So for the Western Cape, we provide all the training for any educator who wants to come and learn about products. And we've been doing that for the past 18 months. And we've been lucky to have 2 Apple Distinguished Educators, and these are educators who are, should I say, versed in utilizing the technology within the classroom and integrating it into the curriculum. Very, very well versed. They've been certified with that. Jane Hoskin and Sean Lazaro are ADEs. And at Project 3 and Core have been there all the way. So we thank them for that. I just want to introduce you to Jane Hoskin. She's our lead ICT integrator and coordinator for this project. And she's going to show you what's been happening within the classroom with learner production of material and teacher production of material. So, Jane, over to you.
Good evening, everyone. You don't have to remember all that white writing underneath there. I'm just an educator. I've been involved in using technology as a tool for a long time. The first computer I used was in 1983, and it was a tool for a photographic library that it was running. And after that, I ran the video and sound production unit for the education department, which was specifically put together to make enrichment material for the curriculum. So I come from a history of using technology in education, just to give myself some credibility in case you doubt. It's been said before, I'm not going to repeat about the laptops being tools. You've heard all about that. But the particular software that comes with the MacBook, it actually allows information to be worked on and transferred and delivered very, very quickly. Whether it's from the learner to the educator, or the other way around, the educator to the learner, or even if learners are collaborating, it's very, very quick, it's instant for them to exchange information. And as you know, our learners of today, they are instant messaging, they cannot wait, everything happens now. Well, some of us have been doing Apple courses for almost 2 years now, but some of our educators did a 2-day course. Well, it's going to be a 3-day course after tomorrow. They have just done this course this week, and before they did the course, some of them had doubts about if they could use this sort of technology in their subjects, for example, accounting. But once they've been on the course and seen the possibilities, they have become very, very excited, and they have lots of ideas. So it's really going to be pervasive throughout all the subjects. The work that the learners will be doing, the way they use the tools and the MacBooks, they can either be making quick little podcasts that take a few minutes, that will be delivered very quickly, very raw, not very sophisticated, but getting across information. Or it can range all the way through to quite an involved production where they would brainstorm, script, do their shots, do the editing, etc., and make a really, not a big production, but in terms of podcasts, a big production. That would be obviously a big research task probably. So you really have the range right throughout. A podcast can also only be audio, it doesn't have to be video as well, but it can be a combination of audio, video, stills, any of those on their own. So it's very flexible. I'm going to show you some podcasts made by learners now. The first one would be a film study exercise and would be linking into, well, it would link into any language, it doesn't necessarily have to be English. And you will see how different the podcasts are that I'm going to show. I'm just going to show you little clips.
This is classified material, Victor 296. Please, if you don't get this, please, help me. Searching for orbit. Zip it up.
So you can see there, from a creative point of view or English point of view, writing that's got a little bit of tension in it, etc. I don't teach English anymore, I'm sure the English teachers can tell you, but a different sort of application. The next one, I would like Pamela Barr, who's head of music, to come and just give you a little bit of background how this happened, this little project started.
Okay, thanks Jane. This project I've actually done with the grade 9s. This is the third year that I've done it with them. And each year that I've introduced the project to them, more technology has been available in the school. And it's quite interesting to see the results of the project as there's more technology available. Having something like the Apple Mac available to all the learners gives every single learner in my music classroom an opportunity to become a fantastic musician or to become a composer. And the basic brief for this project is I introduced them, obviously they know the college song, they sing it recently. We talked a little bit about the background of the college song, and some of them were quite surprised to find out that Beethoven had written it. Lots of them thought various teachers in the school had actually written the school song. And we did a little bit of basic note reading with them, basic music skills, and then they have got to remix the school song with any other genre of their choosing. The excerpt that you're going to hear now is very interesting. There's a group of girls in grade 9, and none of them are music learners, none of them have had individual music lessons, and the work that they've produced has really been phenomenal.
But I've just chosen a tiny clip that you may recognize, then again you may not recognize it. The last one, I'm not going to show you this fourth one because we're going to be short of time. The last one is a less sophisticated one, but very practical, maths literacy project that they did last year in grade 11 with their teacher. They visited Bayside and the learners had to do price comparisons. And I'll just show you a little bit of it. I apologize, but in the shop they were obviously playing music, so the learners are competing with the background music in the shop.
Okay guys, the first example we have found is while working with glasses, okay? We have come to see that, okay, if you buy a box of wine glasses that come together like this with color and everything, it is approximately 89.99 rand, okay? And then Caroline will compare 4 single glasses if you buy them over to Canada.
Okay guys, so here we have a single glass. If you buy 4 single glasses,
they obviously don't understand approximately 89.99 doesn't quite work, but the thought is there. They were doing a comparison of bulk buying or not bulk buying and how much more it is in percentages, etc. So a really practical way of getting the message across. Then I'm just going to show you one educator podcast that I did this one for art, and it's aimed at the GT learner. It can also be used in technology because they also do this in technology. Very, very, very simple. The element of art we look at in this module is color. All the colors in the spectrum are derived from the 3 primary colors, red, blue, and yellow. For example, if you mix red and blue, you will get violet, while if you mix blue and yellow, green, and yellow and red will give you orange. You've probably heard of the color wheel, and so it continues by primary, secondary, and tertiary colors. So you can see the few that you've seen now, you've seen across several subjects, the possibilities are endless. And I think our learners have got a very, very exciting time coming up. If at the end of the presentation, some of our educators who have been on course this week will be in the foyer at the bottom of the staircase. And if you want to ask them about the training that they've done or the ideas they have for integrating the technology into their lessons in the classroom, please do ask them because they're very excited about the project. I just ask you, don't ask them about pricing, that is Mr. Nags' baby. Don't ask them any other things that they probably won't know. It's just about the actual training they're doing and, as I said, the ideas that they have for the classroom. Thank you very much.
Thanks very much, Jane. I'm sure you can see the potential there, both from a research point of view and a creative point of view. Next, I'd like to introduce Mr. Joe Moretti, an Apple Distinguished Educator, and he's been flown in from the UK with Project 3 and 4, and he's been training our educators as they've come out of those classes beaming. He's going to do a little demo workshop on how the products work, how creative they'll help each other.
Is it hot for you here? Is it hot for you? Just think what it's like for me. I left England. We get real weather there. Richard's been very kind. He gave me, originally gave me 10 minutes to show you everything about the iLife workshop and how it works and how it integrates and relates to the curriculum in 10 minutes, practically. Thank you. But I begged and I got 15. So, on the MacBook, you get a suite of programs that comes pre-installed in it. I do a lot of workshops around Europe, and the amazing thing is I do meet a lot of students that already have this resource. I'm quite amazed at times that they actually don't use the resource until it's been shown to them. The fact that this suite of programs, because it's there on the Mac, it's not a kind of baby's freebie. These are pro applications that have been pre-installed for you, ready to go. Because Apple make the software and the hardware, they work all the time. They integrate well, and you don't get things like file format problems, losing your files, etc., etc. But from left to right, iPhoto. iPhoto does for your photos what iTunes does for your music. And it's a huge percentage of the population globally that uses iTunes. iTunes is there on Windows and on Mac, and it goes along with the iPod generation. So your photos, you can edit them, but they're stored in iPhoto, and I'll show you that in a second. iMovie, it's there pre-installed on the Mac, and you can make HD quality movies if you want to, or take the movies off your phone, edit them, add titles, transitions, and do some great things with them easily. An movie application that you can learn within 15 to 20 minutes, and I'll show you that in just a few minutes. The middle one is my favorite as a music specialist. It's already been mentioned by the music teacher, but the fact is that the iLife suite is also about inclusivity. Having software that's complicated, that only your top learners can actually use, there's no point. Having a situation in the classroom where you're going to say to your students, right, I'm going to show you this for the best part of the week, and next week we'll do the classroom work. That's just crazy. What's important is that the software enables and enhances for all your learners from day one, easily. And GarageBand does that for music. It's not just for music specialists, it's for anybody to enjoy making music. One of my favorites at the moment is iWeb. iWeb allows people to make web pages in minutes, without knowledge of HTML. But how does this affect your students and your children? Well, the fact is that you can have an online presence on the school web pages, and each student can have an e-portfolio. That means their work, some of their written work, which will be typed obviously, their image editing, their movies, their podcasts, their achievements will be there online, and you can see it from home. So an electronic portfolio that they can create themselves and they can update, and class projects can be done the same way. Lastly, iDVD. Good old-fashioned hardware. Do you remember those silver discs that you used to buy instead of watching movies online? Well, you can create movies and then you can export them on DVDs that will play on any machine. And that's a really important point. Students will be able to create fantastic content, edit it really easily, focusing on the important parts of the curriculum, and more importantly, share it out. Share it out in lots of ways that are pertinent to today. So here's the first one, iPhoto 09. Easy editing, it now includes GPS. A lot of phones, a lot of cameras actually imprint on the photographs the global positioning satellite data. So that means if you're doing a project and it involves biology and you're out in the field and you take lots of pictures, when you put them into iPhoto, it puts them straight onto a map, Google Maps, and shows you where your project's being based. Being able to share your work, I'm going to show you in a minute, you can do it very, very easily. So this is iPhoto. So what we have here, we have some images from Cairo. We can take an image, we can edit it, we can rotate it, we can crop it, we can cut it down, we can change how it actually looks, we can straighten it, we can add effects to it if we want to. All of this is really easy stuff, one-click stuff. When we're finished with it, we can take our photos and we can turn them into a slideshow. If we want to change those settings, we can. We want to change that theme to something else. We want to change the music. Richard, I know you want ABBA, but I don't think I've got it. Let's have that one. So it's great to be able to take visual imagery, you know, that thing that your children are always walking around with, glued to their hands, their phones, be able to get it into iPhoto, edit it, and then present their work in a slideshow, or we could send it straight to something like that. How many of you use Facebook here? Be honest. Okay. How many of you live on Facebook? So sending it to Facebook as part of your profile, your social network, that's fine. But we can also send it to iWeb as a photo page. I don't have the time because Richard's already got this clock here watching me. But I can send that into iWeb as a photo page. I can also make it into a book. And I can print that as either a PDF, or actually you have the facility in SA to actually send it to a third party who will print that out as a book with a hardback cover, with a dust jacket, and it will be delivered to your home. Just remember that they're not just using this in school, but socially and at home as well. So all of this stuff will come to your home as well. Remember this sharing thing? When they actually upload their stuff? Then it doesn't matter, you've got relatives at different parts of the globe, they'll be easily be able to viewing what they've done. So that's iPhoto in a very, very kind of quick nutshell. iMovie. I've been working with your teachers here for 4 days. Both sessions on iMovie, they had the grasp of editing high-quality movies within 15 to 20 minutes. Even the language teachers. Sorry, I couldn't resist that. Powerful editing, really cool effects, and stunning simplicity. So if we just pop into iMovie, which has a sort of Hollywood style, I'll show you how we connected our camera. It would say, do you want to import the footage off your camera? Yes. And it goes into the bottom there. We don't have time for that. But here's your footage. You can literally just drag over the piece of footage, start editing a movie. Drag over a piece of footage, start editing a movie. Go to your transitions, choose the transition you want, put it in. You want to change the length of it, you can. There's the movie. There it is. I want to crop this piece of movie here. I click on the crop tool. I want to be really mean and focus on these poor dying fish. I now have this. If I want to add titles, I can do. I can just drag my titles over this and start typing it in. Okay, so I now have a title sequence. I've got great transitions. I can add music if I want to. I click on the webcam. I was going to ask this gentleman here to come up and do this bit for me, but I'm not that mean. You'll see how mean I am in a minute. When I click capture, I can add me speaking right there and then. So there's a built-in webcam, and I'm going to talk about fish dying in Cairo. How can we actually let that go on? Click stop, that will go into my footage. And now, that footage can be taken and dragged straight onto there, or over this sequence here. And as I do that, I can put it right into the picture. This is me commenting on a science experiment. This is me describing a piece of footage that I've already created. And so there's a built-in webcam, and I'm going to talk about fish dying in Cairo. Now tell me, is that not cool? And then when I want to share it, I can send it straight to YouTube. Hey, auntie whoever who's living in whatever country, have a look at what else we did this week. One click. I can export the movie, I can export it as QuickTime, and if I do that, there's an option there as 3GP, which all the younger people who have phones know is movies that run on phones. Okay? And then I can Bluetooth it to my phone. Just click send file, and these are students that I've worked with. Yes, I had a student who professed that he was God. Unbelievable. So that's iMovie in a nutshell, or send it straight to iDVD, burn it to DVD. It's really that easy. The point is, it's not dumbed down. It's streamlined and it's intuitive. So we focus on the lesson, not teaching you how to use the software. You'll learn the software, well, we learn the software in 15 minutes, they'll learn it in 5. You saw me doing a little kind of video blog there. In Ireland, a couple of years ago, they were having a real problem with students not wanting to read books. I wonder why. Because the experience outside the classroom was saying Xbox 360, Nintendo DS, Blu-ray DVD, the internet, MSN. That's fine, those things are great, but reading and being able to read is really important. So what they said was, we want you to read a book, but then we want you to use iMovie, and we want to hear what you think of the book. Give us a book review. And if it's a good review, we'll put it on the school web space, and your fellow students can see what you've got to say about those books. Now, students like to see their peers performing, but if a student says to you, this was a really excellent book, and tells you enough about it without giving the game away, I mean, that's a real technique, isn't it? Give me a synopsis of this book, but do not spoil the ending. That's a skill in literacy, reducing it down to the main facts. So here's an example of a young lady doing that. I think she's 8.
Hi, my name's Anna, and this is a book I'm going to be reviewing. Step inside and enter the world of Narnia. This amazing book is about 4 children called Peter, Susan, and Edmund, and Lucy, the youngest. They are taken away to go to London to stay with the professor under the war. There's a huge house where they're staying. It's absolutely huge, and I mean huge. There's over 1,000 bedrooms and 1 million rooms. So, Lucy, the youngest, went into the smallest room she could find. She wanted to see what there was. So, she went in, and all there was a flea lying on the window and a wardrobe. She decided to have a look in it. So, she walked into the wardrobe, and there it was, Narnia, covered in snow. Oh. She ran out and told Peter. Peter told Susan, and Susan told Edmund. They didn't believe her at all. So, if you want to read this book, which I highly recommend you do, join these 4 children in an epic battle to save Narnia from the wicked witch.
If you want to read this book, which I highly recommend that you do, join these 4 children in their epic battle. Fantastic use of language, enthused by a book that she's read to communicate to other children. Absolute perfect example. And they had hundreds of them happening, and book reading started to happen big time. And children were also ticking off the ICT boxes, making movies. GarageBand. A lot of the time music is seen as the provision of specialists. GarageBand is unusual in that it allows your music specialist, your grade 8 pianist, to perform at the highest level and compose at the highest level, but it's also about inclusivity. Anybody can make music with GarageBand. But it's also a podcasting tool, and a podcast can have any images and any audio. It's as simple as that. It's what we, the educators, and what the students decide to use it for. That's the important thing. When you've made it, you put it on the school network, and they can download it at home and play it on their Mac and watch things, whether it's going to be revision or more learning. Or they can play it on these things. These things are so prevalent, iPods. And they play images and they play movies at high definition quality. Or in the case of this one, this new one actually takes video. It's unbelievable. It actually shoots video, and then you can edit on there, and then you can bring it back in, having added text on it. So the Nano and the iPod Touch are phenomenal. To show you what GarageBand can do, there's some high quality images of the type that can run on it, but because we're running short of time, we'll go straight into the demo. So with GarageBand, what I'm going to do is give you a quick once over of adding some music to it, and just how easy it is. When it launches, I can add instrumental tracks, so any performer who plays keyboard has got access to hundreds of quality instruments, pianos, bass guitars, and can play them from a keyboard. If I want to work with students who've never worked with music before, and just start them working on loops, all of these are just drum loops. I've selected drums here, so here we go. If I like it, I just drag it in. There's one drum loop, and I can make it go on for longer. And while that's playing, I can start looking at other musical ideas. I know most of you are too young to remember the 80s, but let's give this a go. Notice this. It's always in time. You cannot have it out of time in GarageBand, so we drag it in, and now we've got a bass synth. If I want to, I can share that, send it to iTunes, I can burn it straight to CD. How cheap are CDs? And bring it home. Take it to another class, work on it in dance or drama or something like that. Export it to iTunes, and then Bluetooth it to my phone. If I Bluetooth it to my phone, I can make it my ringtone. However, apart from doing music on it, it'd be really cool to be able to record some audio. It's as easy as that. I've done the same thing. This time, I've created a track so that I can record my voice talking. So I'll do that, but what I thought would be a really good example, imagine instead of doing this, I'm going to use this for a language setup. And what I'm going to do is get somebody who can speak 2 languages to say a phrase in one language and a phrase in the English language. So you look like a willing victim, being a language teacher. Come on down and help me out, please. Yeah, I paid for this tomorrow. We have another session tomorrow. It's going to be like death for me. I don't speak 2 languages. I can barely speak 1 language. That's true. So, which language are you going to treat us to? English and... Okay, so give me the phrase in Afrikaans when I do that, first of all, and then leave a gap and say the phrase in English, okay? Not that microphone. The microphone's on the Mac. It's built in at the top there, so you need to peel out there. Okay, you ready?
Mijn hond Max is de beste hond in de hele wereld. My dog Max is the best dog in the whole world.
When you said Max in the first bit, I thought, sorry, Max. Can I have a round of applause for that little camera? So my dog Max on my Mac computer is there. I'm going to actually split this in half because it's more interesting to get really inventive with this, okay? And I'm going to create a duplicate track. So I've actually got 1 phrase in English and 1 phrase in Afrikaans, yeah?
Mijn hond Max is de beste hond in de hele wereld. My dog Max is the best dog in the whole world.
Okay, so that's cool. Imagine this was a story and you want to become different characters. So this first character over here, who's saying it in Afrikaans, we can actually do this kind of stuff too, which is really cool. The young lady was speaking there, but I think she would be better off as a male.
Mijn Max is die beste hond die je heel gaat.
I like that. And the second one that we're going to have is going to be answered by her friend, the chipmunk.
My Max is the best dog in the whole world.
Now, that's great fun, especially when it's not your voice that you're doing it to. But the point is, if you're writing a story, you can become lots of different characters. With one change here, we can actually become a monster. So we just click on here. So when you're writing your stories, you can record them into here, you can add music, and then on top of that, you can use good old-fashioned paint and paper. You can make your paintings, and then you can photograph them with your phone. You then drag in your pictures, but this picture could be that phrase in Afrikaans for the first part. And my second picture, you'll have to imagine, would be the phrase in English. And then I can have as many pictures as I like going on here. So let's just add just a few more just to give you the idea. And that's the whole thing, playing at the same time. I won't have the music, because I think the speaking part is good enough as it is. I mean, it's going to be a male and a monster. But you get the idea, and the images.
Max is die beste hond die je heel gaat.
You get the idea. And I can share this out, send it to iTunes, and then I can put it on an iPod. You can use it in languages, you can use it for any part of the curriculum that you want to do. Lastly, if I want to work with movies, I can start working on a movie that I made on my Mac, but this is doing animation. And the teachers did this week. Not this particular animation, but I've actually got my dog Max and some music going on at the same time, but it'll be just kind of crazy, but who cares?
Mijn Max is die beste hond die je heel gaat.
That really fits, doesn't it? So I can export that. The point about the software is it's enabling me to work smoothly with the curriculum focus. It's nearly all one-click stuff. And when I share it, I do not get file format not supported. It just works because they make the hardware and they make the software. Can I just say thank you very much for being a good sport of that, by the way. Lastly, iWeb, being able to make your own website in the same way that I've just shown you using other pieces of software. I already mentioned how accessible that can be, and that's the iLife suite. I think it's worth mentioning that these three apps have got big brothers. Final Cut Studio, 80% of the movies that you watch that come from Hollywood are edited in Final Cut Studio 2. It's the industry standard. And it's the big brother of iMovie, and it works in a very similar way. Logic Studio 9 is the pro app that I use in the UK and that I teach an awful lot. It's the big brother of GarageBand. And for iPhoto, we have Aperture. That means that the progression to the professional world, if somebody wants to work in those industries, is much smoother. They're already working on that platform. And as Steve Jobs would say, just one more thing. I still use Windows because it is an operating system that is prevalent and we shouldn't be ignoring it. So if I change to my other account, which is where I have Windows installed, there it is. That's not just a picture, that's XP running at the same time as OS X. It's not a big deal, you just install it, you run it the same way, there's all my programs, and I can drag something from my pictures from here, straight into my Windows world, from my Mac world, and back again. So the two worlds coexist beautifully on the same machine that you're looking at down there. Thank you very much for listening, and if you have any questions about this stuff afterwards, please do come and talk to me.
Thank you very much, Joe. You managed to do that in 15 minutes. I think it shows you the power of the software. And Apple has been in education since the 80s. They handed over Apple IIs and the logo program to various secondary schools, and they started researching the impact of technology in the classroom. And you can see from these kind of tools that they really understand what's going on. So let's move on. The purchase. We are currently negotiating special academic pricing. It's approximately 10,000 Rand excluding that. That includes a 3-year warranty. Parents must arrange their own household or risks insurance. Payment options, we don't take cash, so that was supposed to be EFT, checking, credit card. We can add it to the school fees after 6 months. We roll out in June. Did I miss a slide? Did I miss? Sorry, let me go back. Sorry, roll out plan. Yeah, well, this is what we try to do. We try to achieve one-to-one over 36 months. 1st of June 2010, we're going to roll out to grades 4, 7, 8, and 9. January 2011, grades 4, 5, 7, 8, 9, 10. And January 2012, grades 4, 5, I left out 6, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and 11. Educator training is continuous with support obviously from Project 3 and Core. And when we go into the purchase, I missed that slide earlier, sorry, so we've been over that. You can add it to the school fees over 6 months. We will receive a machine after we've received payment. We're also exploring other means in which you can pay, and we've spoken to Nashua, and they can finance it through your business at a cost per month, and we're busy negotiating that cost at the moment as well. The software is included, you've seen it, as OSX 10.6, Snow Leopard, iPhone 9, GarageBand, iMovie, iPhoto, iWeb, iTunes, iDVD, Safari, Firefox will be on it as well, big time. And if you want to run Microsoft Windows on it, we need to buy a Microsoft operating system license. That's 985 Rand. These are all exclusive of that. Microsoft Office 2008 for Mac, that means you can run Office on the Mac operating system, OS X, is 200 Rand a year. Microsoft Office 2000, sorry, Kaspersky Antivirus 140 Rand a year. Adobe CS4 Web Premium 160 Rand a year, which is an amazing, amazing product. To try and buy this product normally in retail, you're looking at about 10,000 Rand. We, as education, are getting that special pricing. So it's quite an amazing tool and something we'd like to use in the high school. This is the team. You see we've got quite a lot of buy-in from obviously Lorraine Roth, who's myself, project manager, financial advisors, Jane Cleese, she's not here this evening. If you want to speak about purchase options, you can speak to her. But you can also speak to me as well. The infrastructure service and support is Michael Swart. I'm sure you've met him. He's very competent. Lead ICT curriculum coordinator Jane Hoskin. Preparatory curriculum integrated, because secondary and preparatory education is so different. We have two ICT integrators, although Jane is the lead and will be supporting in the classroom as well in both faculties next year. Excuse me. Microsoft integrator, training with underway programs advisor Sylvia Stan, Colleen Miller, your principals, and of course, I think we missed a little bit at the bottom there, Kevin Sherman, who is education consultant with Core, obviously with Michelle Lassus, and Project 3 as well. That's the person to contact. If you have any questions, you may ask. Yes?
What version of Microsoft Office and Windows do you actually install in the machine?
That would be Windows 7 pricing that we got. You can install any version of Microsoft Windows.
For that price?
For that price is Windows 7.
Which is the latest version?
It's the latest version.
And Microsoft Office?
Sorry?
The Microsoft Office?
2008. Yes. Any other? Yes.
I would imagine that you're going to reduce the physical textbooks and get a lot more books on the laptop. Is that part of the plan?
It's certainly the way that we're moving. Yes.
By when would you say that would be in place? Let's say the end of next year. Would you say that half the textbooks will be on the machine?
No, we couldn't anticipate that yet. Certainly, there's a lot of content that the teachers have developed with regards to worksheets and notes, and that's available from the intranet. I don't know if you've seen that. I'm sure the learners have had experience with that, and it's certainly a point that we're moving towards yet. I can't give you a time at this stage. You know, the book is always a great thing, and I love a book, but certainly it's something that we have to consider.
Will it be compulsory to buy into this
program?
We obviously it's an enhancement to the learning program. We want every single learner to have one. Yes, we want it to be compulsory in 2011. It's only beneficial to your child. If anybody else wants to jump in and ask some questions, please be advised. Please do so. But yes, compulsory 2011. We're looking at that. And the flexibility of the Mac. I really hope you can see that.
So if a child's got a Microsoft PC with a laptop with it,
yes. Well, they can still obviously utilize that, but they won't have the benefits of the iLife suite and MacBook. And that whole application suite is just not available to them. They can certainly access the internet, but
Sorry, do you upgrade
yes.
the software on a regular basis? Because we all know that in 2 years' time it's obsolete.
yes, if I just want to show you, we have a Microsoft Schools agreement. So that's why the pricing is so good for Microsoft Office for Mac. Unfortunately, when you buy a PC, you get an OEM or a license with that PC. That comes with a PC. With the Mac, you don't get that Windows license. So you have to buy the license for that. And then because you're paying, then after that, you get free upgrades. Free upgrades of 200 Rand a year is what you pay, and you get all the upgrades are free for that period. Free, 200 Rand a
If we
year.
buy the laptop now for your child in grade 9 next year, will it last them through the trip? Or do you need to buy in 2 years' time again?
No, look, the technology issue.
A couple of things. My daughter had 2 Windows laptops. They kept slowing down within 12 months, and they just basically stopped. So I bought her a white MacBook, and she's had it now for 3 years. It was set on eBay. That would still be 75%, 80% of what it was worth. All the software I showed you gets updated daily, if not weekly. You leave it on the internet. It doesn't get viruses. The actual applications I've shown you, the operating system and everything else on it, you get a little warning saying there's a free update, and it updates free all the time.